Welcome to the NewSpace India podcast, a bi-weekly talk show that brings you exclusive stories from people driving India's space activities. The NewSpace India podcast is pleased to announce our association with Dassault Systems, a global leader in providing businesses and people with collaborative virtual environments to imagine sustainable innovations. Dassault Systems solutions support startups, small and medium-scale enterprises, and original equipment manufacturers in developing disruptive solutions for space launchers and satellite propulsion. Hi, and welcome to yet another episode of the NewSpace India podcast. And today we have Suyash here, who is a part of GalaxEye. Is that correct, the pronunciation?
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you, Suyash, for getting on the show, and welcome to you, and look forward to listening about your journey and what you try to do, and then how we could support you.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me here, first of all. And it's a pleasure being a part of NewSpace India, and it's also a pleasure being part of space tech community in India particularly. So about me, I come from IIT Madras, a master's student. I'm a master's graduate from IIT Madras. Before that, I did my undergraduation in mechanical engineering from a very small town. It's called Bhopal, and from where I did that, and then I went on to do few gain some corporate experience in several industries for 4 to 5 years, and then later on I realized I need to do a little more in life. So I joined IIT Madras. I did my post-graduation in post-graduation in aerospace engineering. And then, from there on, I started to do a lot of deep tech things, so while being at IIT Madras, I started this team called Team Avishkar Hyperloop. I was very excited about these stuffs that Elon Musk does. And, I had few friends in the US who were doing very similar competitions. And, I was sitting in a hostel room one day and thinking about, is this something which is fascinating, and why can't, our institute can try this, or, why are we so on a back foot in terms of such kind of deep tech technologies? And the idea sparked there. And, I started the team, and it's a long story short, we became the only Asian team in 2019 to qualify for SpaceX Hyperloop pod competition. And, we were one of the teams who went with a Hyperloop pod with the propulsion mechanism. It was not just, one of the pods which will run, but it will also propel itself. So, learning through the all vacuum technologies and several other things there, I got really confident about, doing stuffs. I loved doing deep technology. From there on, I found right team members in the team. And, while roaming around LA and San Francisco, meeting several alumni in Los Angeles as well as in San Francisco, we got fascinated about space technology in general. And then, the first idea that came to us was, can we take Hyperloop technologies and put it into space tech, right? And from there on, we started figuring out, did some feasibility studies, right? How to launch rocket using Hyperloop, or, how to do several other things using Hyperloop technologies. So after that, we did a lot of feasibility studies. We talked to our advisor, who is Professor Chakravarti, who is also a co-founder advisor to Agnikul Cosmos, right? So after talking to him, we understood that, probably Hyperloop technologies are not really affordable when it comes to space tech. So, but while doing all of these things, we understood Earth observation really well. We understood there's a gap in Earth observation. And then, from there on, we started to think about, okay, this is something that we can do. And, we literally 4 or 5 people came together as a team to start GalaxEye Space.
Fascinating. So I'm sure that you have a totally different perspective, because there are generations of space enthusiastic students that have come through over the last 15 years or so. I still remember the students at IIT Bombay who started the original Pratham program, and they were talking about it back in 2006 or 7 or something like that. And I was around in the same time working on small satellites back then, and I knew those guys quite well. Unfortunately, a lot of them had to leave the country and join NASA or other institutions at the end of the day to kind of keep working in the sector while they couldn't possibly start a company or something like that. And today it's taken that generational change for people to then say we're going to start a company around all of this, or people to say we'll fund this, right? So that's a big generational gap. So how much of this entrepreneurial spirit do you see among your peers or so on, moving from typically being a very well educated, coming from set up like the IITs, and moving towards entrepreneurship?
There's a culture at several premier institutes of the country, including IITs as well as NITs and probably PITS, right? All of these institutes, I think, have now built a culture of innovation. In a way, students there participate in several competitions where they not only learn about the technology, right? They also understand what is procurement, what is fundraising in terms of sponsorship, what is team management, using tools like Notion, Slack, all of these things, right? So they undergo an experience which is exactly what a startup does, right? So I think that motivates them, that prepares them to take up such kind of challenges, and take up such kind of initiatives. So I think it is very important for all of these students to go ahead, do co-curricular activities which involves deep tech engineering and other things. So and doing these kind of things at the institute gives you such level of confidence where you can make a good decision between choosing a high funder corporate job or doing your own startup, right? And the resources which are available, of course, there are a lot of industry alma maters, or there are other people who come to the institutes, help us in understanding the market, help us shaping the product, help us shaping the idea. So I think the platform is pretty, I would say, better than what it was 7 years or 8 years before. And it's much resourceful in every sense. But at the same time, I think uh, we are more prepared, right? Like the generation before us wasn't prepared because there was no culture of innovation in the sense it is today. So in that way, I think yes, it's extremely resourceful to be there, and we are pretty much prepared to undergo the challenges and seas of unknowns and other things.
And tell us a little bit about your own co-founders, because I know that you seem really motivated as such. You also need a bunch of other motivated people along with you to build a company, especially in this industry, right? So, how is it that you are able to pull together a team that possibly has some complementary skill sets to be able to then not just build technology and also do business, also take care of other things, right? So, how was it that your team formed?
So I think it was pretty straightforward in our case, right? Uh, we all know each other from like last 4 to 5 years. We have worked together for three different versions of Team Avishka Hyperloop, like three different generations. Now the fourth generation is also working, and they are coming up with a pod very soon. But we have worked together for so long that we understand, how things go together, with each other. And at the same time, we have seen people taking different initiatives, and in a way it is very complementary. For example, Daniel is my co-founder, so Daniel is also a master's in aerospace engineering at IIT Madras. He loves technology. He definitely goes into the deep maths of the things. He likes to break down the technology to the core and understand everything, every aspect of it. So definitely that makes him the best person to sit and do the tech part of it. Then we have three more people, right, who are not the co-founders, but they are very core and founding team members of the startup. All of those three people also bring a variety of skill sets in the team. So, namely Rakshit, Kishan, and Pranit. These three people have done different things. For example, Rakshit is extremely excited about the computing stuff. So, he brings in a lot of capabilities as well as a lot of motivation and excitement towards advanced computing stuff. At the same time, Pranit is more about business development, right? He has done a lot of things when it comes to Hyperloop and managing stuffs and here and there. Plus, Kishan is very much into the product development. And Kishan, all of these people, some or the other way, we have led Team Avishkar in different generations as well. So the leadership experience is common between all of us, but I think it was very complementary in terms of skill sets and capabilities that we all had together, right? And we found each other. It was not that I started searching people. We found each other at the same place, same time. Okay, fine, we'll do this. Okay, you're the right guy. You're the right guy, and that's how we came together.
Yeah, fascinating always. From your early stages on all of this, you talked about changing ideas from one to the other and coming up to the idea of the one that you're now pursuing with GalaxEye itself. So, can you walk us through, what is your goal and what are you trying to achieve, and what is the product that you're trying to build?
When we were doing Hyperloop, we started from 0 to 1, right? We started from scratch. We had nothing in hands, and then we went to the prototype level. Similarly, in GalaxEye Space, we didn't want to start from scratch, right? Satellite industry is way ahead than what we have to think today, right? Satellite industry is mature enough because of organizations like ISRO, NASA, ESA, and several other private players in the industry. So it was very important for us to make sure that the differentiation is really useful to the market and customers that we have, right? So actually what we did was, when we got stuck with the same idea, we went and did a customer discovery. We went and talked to approximately 70 customers across the world. Because of the pandemic, it was definitely helpful that we don't have to travel to every country, but we were still able to do a e-meet and talk to them, understand their pain points and other things, right? We never wanted to just make the product in the first place, right? We wanted to go a little backwards, because technology is something that definitely there are a lot of experts much better than us, who can guide us to build something. But we wanted to build something which is really needed from the market, right? And GalaxEye Space is then came together to build a satellite which is extremely useful to the customers. In a way, the market is today is moving towards deep learning and machine learning applications a lot more than before, even in geospatial community. So our idea is more on enabling deep learning and machine learning people to do right things, right? There are several level of data sets that come from these satellites, be it L0, L1 and L2, right? Raw data, semi-processed data and processed data. Our idea is to feed data scientists and data analysts and industries with the right data set which they can directly plug and play for their machine learning and deep learning applications. At the same time, we are trying to provide them a lot more computing aspects and trying to do pre-processing things for them right away, without wasting too much time of theirs, utilizing raw data, converting that into insights and then giving it to their customers. So that is the value proposition that we found, that solves a little more, I think, many pain points of the customers that we talked in the past.
Right, very interesting in this sense. So when you said that you had the challenge of reaching customers, early stage customers, talking to them among the pandemic and all of this, I'm sure that there was people who you talked to locally and people who you possibly reached out internationally at the same time. So was there any specific reactions to both local and international players that was distinct in such a fashion? And I know that as early stage founders, getting meetings being young and trying to get meetings with right decision makers could also be kind of very challenging in all of this. How has been your experience between all of these, generally?
I think it was quite overwhelming in every sense, right? Because I found it completely opposite, right? When we started talking to people, uh, they never said no. I mean, almost everyone, like we had 90% conversion rate to do a meeting with anyone we reached out, right? And they they were so excited about that a young team is trying to work on something like this. And like we talked to different kind of archetypes, like we talked to decision makers, we also talked to people who were doing actual data science and analysis and other things. All of these people, were really helpful in every aspect. They talked a lot, you know in, in a way that they don't reveal much of the information from their company and firm, but then they talked a lot. They empathized with us. They tried to tell us more and more pain points of the problems that they had. And it was a good experience, I would say. It wasn't very different, like the way we had interactions here in India. It was very similar across the world, right? Everyone entertained us in a very similar fashion, and that is, I think, because of the way geospatial community is now coming together and moving, in a very accelerated fashion. So it was great.
Right, and what you're trying to build is more or less something in the Earth observation sector, which is basically cameras and trying to fly cameras to capture data at the end, right? So when it comes to this kind of image acquisition and spatial data capturing and things like that, there's different niches. You can image the Earth in just visible light, or you can image the Earth multiple times in different bands, create hyperspectral data cube, or you can do synthetic aperture radar, you can do shortwave infrared, you can do thermal imaging. There's lots of options that are out there. So far, what has been your sense of how this market has evolved? Because today you see, over the last 10 years, there's been number of Earth observation companies that have prominently come up. Companies like Planet have targeted RGB and a few other bands, and Satellogic has come up. Pixel is coming up in India as well. So where do you see still gaps coming up, and where do you exactly see that you will be filling that gap?
Right. So there are three kinds of things that we figured out. One is spatial resolution, another is spectral resolution, third is temporal resolution. Right. Now, these are the three resolutions where any Earth observation company will come and try and optimize, right? Like they want higher cadence, they want higher resolution, they want higher spectral resolution, right? Uh, but at the end of the day, a customer or anyone wants the most meaningful data set to analyze, and they don't want to go through an inaccurate way of doing things, right? And the availability of the data sets, priority of the low paying customers and priority of the premium paying customers, there are several other variables, right? The Earth observation community is trying to solve today. I think being a flurry of Earth observation companies still doesn't suffice, you know, the total demand of the market. There needs to be much more birds up there to do more sensing, to open up a commercial segment, because most of the companies who are already out there are more reliant on defense projects. Right? But the commercial aspect of the Earth observation is still unlocked. It's still locked, right? We need to build capabilities and skill set to unlock all of these things. Now, talking about the differentiation that we have is, we are a company who's trying to give a data set which is, not exactly optical, which is consisting of RGB, NIR, or not exactly radar. It is somewhere in between, and it's a hybrid sensor, right? And we are coming up with a very different sensor which kind of has properties of radar as well as has properties of optical, right? So as to make data more available, as well as make data more meaningful to the customers, right? And at the same time, our job is not to bombard customers with the data, like, giving them a lot of metadata to just, solve, like spend n number of hours to crunch the data and then come up with the insights or something. Our job is to give them the most meaningful data set, as well as to give them some ground truth reality with the data set to see that, okay, this is something which will make sense, right? When they train their models, be it deep learning or machine learning, or when they do some analysis on top of it, be it soil moisture calculation, vegetation monitoring, or anything like that, they should see some reality validating and calibrating with the data set, right? So it's a mixture of a solution which is extremely ideal, or, as few customers have quoted for the solution for us is like, it's a dream of any remote sensing engineer to have such kind of data set.
So you would say the proprietariness of your work so far is the creation of the payload and figuring out, what the customer sees as a gap in the payload or the image data that they are getting so far.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So, and there's of course the bus that needs to be built, the satellite itself, and you need to do a bunch of other things to actually get this stuff up, right? So, how is your approach? Because I mean, you can do a vertical integration. There are other companies that are using, third-party bus manufacturers so that they just can focus on the payload itself. What has been your strategy so far?
So in terms of strategy, it's important for us first to, demonstrate the payload's capability of, doing stuffs. So our focus currently is more towards payload as of now. But, down the line, 6 months or 8 months from now, we are planning, or, we have started to talk to people and, get those components like power distribution system or power generation system or anything which, consists of the bus. So of course, there's no plan to do a vertical integration, do everything by our own, right? We want to leverage the capabilities which are already available, and, we want to follow or, chase the vision that we have rather than, reinventing the wheel. So for sure, the partnering is the key. Ecosystem play is definitely the key here, not just for us, but any company, in India who are trying to do that. And of course, with the InSpace program kicking in is a boon for sure. And, we definitely look forward to that. But of course, that comes at a stage, and we are not in hurry to do anything. Like, people come and tell us, you don't have a first mover advantage or something. Then I tell them, General Motors was the first company to come in India, and it doesn't exist anymore today. So it's not about being the first; it's about being the right.
Yeah, I mean, definitely I agree with that. And, you should always give it a try. If you have customers and you have demand, there's nothing that stops you from trying, of course, in all of this thing. And it's also interesting that I guess I saw that you also raised seed capital from Vishesh and, Speciale Invest. Of course, I've also recorded an episode with Vishesh as well, who talked very interestingly about his thesis and where he sees opportunity and all of this. Given that, Vishesh already knows about the sector quite well, and, Speciale has made quite a few investments, including in Agnikul and Kava Space and others as well. So there may be a lower barrier to educating him about the opportunity and the sector, right? So I guess you definitely benefit from that. So what has been your journey in raising this capital so far?
Right. So I think what we have done so far is not the seed round, but we have only done the pre-seed round as of now. And, absolutely, I think Special Invest and Vishesh in particular, are extremely well-known people in space tech today. They invest a lot in space tech in different companies, and they understand the tech for sure. And we don't have to, run through them from the basics and other stuff. That was definitely helpful. But at the same time, the relationship between with Special Invest has been more like, they trust the team more than what we do. Like, the idea and concept is, I think, secondary when it comes to, teams for Vishesh and other people. So, the pedigree to do stuffs from end to end is extremely important. And in our case, it really fit well with, with our investment conversations with Vishal Invest, and for that matter, other investors as well. But, of course, we wanted to have that space tech sense in in the VCs, at least in the beginning of the stages. And of course, all the other people are catching up. We'd love to, talk to them, make them understand what we are doing, and, go ahead when we are, and when we think it's the right time to go and talk to them. Uh, so investment experience, I think it was pretty good because we got to learn. It was a learning experience, I would say, more than just raising funds, right? Because building a company, right? It's a altogether different experience, because building technology using grant money and other things, we have done it before. But building a company was an exciting, journey, and raising funds for the first time was another exciting thing that we had. Uh, and it was all, learning how a deep tech startup should start, what it should do in steps to reach somewhere that they should reach, right? We were not in hurry uh, at any point of time. We started in 2020 in April, and this was like 1 year when we were talking to customers, when we were in some incubators, understanding, devising the value proposition and other stuff. So we were continuously talking to Vishesh in a lot of other terms. Like, we, for 6 months or 8 months, we had been talking to him. He helped us to shape few things for us as well, right? Yeah, and that was a relationship, which we were very fortunate to have at any point of time. So I think, yes, and in particularly, talking about the deep tech investment, uh, it should be that way. I mean, that's what our learning has to say. If we raise too much or too less, it is going to be very, very tough, because at every stage we have to demonstrate few things. Unlike, the SaaS services, which are very different from what space tech does. If you are building a SaaS product, probably you'll have number of users, on your platform and other things. But in our case, who are actually building the hardware, right, it will be very difficult for anyone to demonstrate a lot of things in the beginning itself, right? So we need to cut short stages into several, small milestones, achieve it one by one, and then, you know, uh, make that fit with the right stage, I would say, right? And then the right investors will also come in. They will fund you, and probably a lot of investors, apart from even Vishesh, are following our pre-seed round, have started to chat with us, uh, and they're pretty excited about the domain, right? But then all of them wants to see the right fit, and finding the right fit is very, very important here for the investee and investor as well.
Right. And when you talked about building the payload and all of this, I was just thinking if you could also do something, using drones or airplanes or things like that to fly your payload to do some tests or so on. Because getting to space is, of course, very expensive. Uh, are there anything, that makes such logical steps where you can progressively mature the payload, and then, once the characteristics are more or less there, you can bend it around the satellite itself?
Absolutely. I think that is the plan, possibly. We are doing proof of concepts. We almost done few iterations of the proof of concepts in lab scale. We are now putting those components together in a miniaturized structure and format, where we'll, and then we'll take that on top of a quadcopter, and or the drones or the planes that are there, which can fly, I think, not more than 500 meters or so, first of at the first iteration. And then slowly we'll take it to the aerial platform, right? And once we have that aerial platform confirmation, right, then we go to the space. Because I think space technology, for sure, everyone needs to has that space heritage and other things. But we are more on the grounds that possibly we will take a lot of help from the ecosystem to configure the satellite very well, with few experts here and there. Of course, we have few members in the team coming up, joining us in a month or so, who will be more oriented towards space tech. But the idea is exactly same, Narayan, what you said, right? Going to the drone and then going to an aerial platform and then going to the space, right? So space is a journey where probably things are getting more, standardized. For example, CubeSat platforms, or the kind of communications antennas or whatever is there, like in terms of secondary payloads. But it's also very important to understand, what is your primary payload and what is your business case, right? And if both of those things put together are fine, then I think ecosystem is extremely overwhelming to give you a lot of things which you don't want to build.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I was just taking note again was how could the system help you now? Because one of the things that I saw, I was having a discussion with somebody from Axiom recently, and they were saying that one reason why a lot of pharmaceutical companies in the US is able to do a lot of research on the International Space Station is because they get free crew time and free launch, and that gives them the incentive to invest in some R&D and put together the effort itself. So I was just thinking, wouldn't it be fantastic if ISRO gave you a free IOD, in orbit demonstration opportunity, where you could just give them the payload, and depending on the fit of the timeline, of course, that they would just put it together for you, and then you could just launch it and get to space and prove that your payload really works on orbit, and through that get the validation that everything works, that you could go together to then build a mission. I mean, that would be fantastic for the ecosystem, right?
Absolutely. I think, I think people who are actually, who are Indian registered companies, the companies who are actually registered in India, uh, right? They probably have that benefit of, using some of the facilities from ISRO. For example, there is in every launch vehicle there is a space. It's called PS4 that we all know. Right? So PS4 gives you some time in the orbit where you can demonstrate your payload. Right? Of course, you need to be in the in the volumetric constraint. You need to satisfy a lot of tests as well, right? So that it doesn't hamper the launch of the launch vehicle. But they definitely have those facilities as a student project, maybe, or as a startup as well. You can possibly go there and do that. We are also trying to do that, but at the same time, there's also another avenue that is opening up. A lot of startups who are now building launch vehicles, like Agnikul and Skyroot in India, they will possibly do the first round of tests, right? Maybe something like suborbital or and all of these things. So all of the startups, who are into uh, satellite payloads or who are into small sats, CubeSats, should also think of trying up with them to do some small testing, right? Possibly ISRO launches every 3-4 months, but all these new startups can also they learn from failure, you learn from failure, and this is how we can learn together. So I'm saying, it's good to be dependent on the government for a lot of things, but it is also good to be interdependent and be more independent of things which are going to come from the government. We can't just talk everything, and we can't just expect everything from the government, right? Few things we have to do it on our own, and that is what our professor at IIT Madras is also trying to do, right? A lot of things trying to come up with our own, and then at the final stage we involve ISRO or anyone like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it really helps if there is such a program from ISRO and you're able to get a free launch. It's saving a lot of money to these young companies, of course, in all of these things. So as far as you are concerned, while building all of these payloads, I know that a lot of the electronics ecosystem in India for especially high-end electronics is very difficult because you have people who can do build to print or manufacture a lot of things if you design a PCB board or so on. But to actually import any sensors or even have any sensors locally is very, very difficult. Even in case of yours, I'm sure that you'll have to look at image sensors and others from sources abroad, and there's a lot of hassle in possibly getting them around the pandemic time now as well. So what has been your struggle with, let's say, supply chains, or how do you see this sitting out of India?
I think, so far as an early stage company, we haven't gone through that process yet, at a larger scale. We have gone through a smaller scale. Of course, it was hectic. It was, very difficult to procure items. It takes longer lead times. Sometimes the specifications won't match, and there are other stuffs that happens, all across. So it's a quite bit of a hassle so far, But I think, uh, for example, aggregators like yourself, is a place then or a solution where we can actually go and uh, directly source. So I think that is something that people are trying to look for, just like us, whoever is in the ecosystem, and that is much more sensible as well at the same time to do those kind of stuff. But in case of when we were doing Avishka Hyperloop, 70% of the components were sourced from foreign countries in India. And that time also, I think we faced very similar problems. Getting the custom clearance, getting the lead times cut short, or getting delayed, all the stuffs, and then checks and many regulations and other things, and so forth. But that time also, I think what who helped us was all the government authorities who believes in new projects and innovation. So it's a combination of right solution, like a marketplace like yours, as well as how InSpace or authorities come together to address the regulatory issues, and that will make life easy for all the entrepreneurs out there. So if both of these things come together in a very nice way, and there's a straight away funnel or a pipeline from where we can go and source easily, that will be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that Agnikul also benefited from an infrastructure side is also the labs, right? The combustion labs that you have in IIT Madras and others. For you guys, are there anything specific that you think are beneficial, have benefited you specifically for the things that you are planning to do?
Yeah, I think we do have multiple things at combustion lab, right? We also have been working out of the same lab with Agnikul. Uh, you know, uh, there are few things which are actually helpful, like the anechoic chambers. They are also there at the combustion lab. There are few drop towers and other things. So I think there are few components which we have to test outside, but most of the things that we can do are actually available in the combustion labs. Apart from the lab where we work, we also have Department of Electrical Engineering, electronics, and professors, who we can actually reach out to, get some of the help, and they're very helpful in terms of understanding the problems that we face in terms of space electronics, ruggedness, or any other aspects, and then they give the right advice. So I think the infrastructure is, of course, at an early stage, or for any early stage company, it's out there where we work. But then, of course, anyone requires more than what they will be doing at several stages. Like stage one, they will require few things. Stage two, they will require few more things. So we have to go one step at a time. And with the help of advisors and mentors that we have, we are trying to figure out the other facilities. I know how to source them, how to reach out to them, and what is the best way to plug and play.
Nice. And what do you think are bottlenecks that still remain unsolved for companies like you? Because a few years ago, almost access to capital was a problem, or even if you raised any capital or so on, at some point of time, the regulatory framework was not fully opened up. Today, everything seems to be coming together for all of the companies like you, and things seem to be, getting into a kind of a clockwork where if you are reasonably good with the technology that you are establishing, then you have a very good shot with building a pretty reasonably good company out of India. So are there any things that you feel like, oh, this should be solved for, if not you, at least the next generation after you, to get better access?
I think there are three things, in particular, which every startup has to deal from the first day one. The investors, customers, and the people that they work with, the team. Right. I think access to capital, as you all already mentioned, people are excited about space tech domain today. So access to capital is definitely something which is slowly getting solved. At the same time, regulations. I think the fourth pillar is the regulation, right? And the first thing, the customers. I mean, if there is no market, there's no point of building a company. So the first thing that is very important is to find out whether there is a product market fit or not, right? Even we are in the process of doing a lot of things to find the right product market fit, right? We have solved till some point, but we still have to do that. In terms of investors, yes, I think access to capital is slowly getting, accelerated. Regulatory, of course, in space. In terms of the talent and skill set, right? I think that is one gray area which we still have to, really solve. And teams like Avishka Hyperloop, or for that matter, other Formula teams across the universities in India are the people who are working on few tech, but they don't go too much deep on that sometimes, right? So I think skill sets and talent is also very important if they have right basics, right fundamentals about space technology in general, right? The course curriculum, if they start including all of those things, that will be great. But then, I think, all of these things take time. Something which is unorganized has a lot of scope of innovation. So I feel, people who are there in the ecosystem should be able to solve all such kind of things. And if they are not able to solve, probably this, domain will not grow as much as it should grow. So I think from my perspective, everything has its own challenges, right? Everything it takes its own time to build trust, to build visibility. So when we were doing Hyperloop, like it took around 1.5 years to make people trust that this will run. So it takes its own time in every case, even with ISRO who are actually doing in space, but they still have to figure out a lot of nitty-gritties of everything, right? A few people will come with unprepared, people will come prepared, and they have to ensure every safety aspects and other things. So it will take its own time, but I think the one piece of the puzzle which is still behind is the talent and the skill set which is required to build such companies.
And what do you think about government opening up its demand? So because I feel like somehow, it's also interesting that there is not much demand exposed from government to startups in India when it comes to ISRO or DRDO, the whole space requirements that they have. And this is one of the features of NASA or other places, ESA or other places, right, where they're opening up government demand to this. On one side, I do think that it's almost good that there's no government demand, because you try to then force yourself to be more commercial and try to work with the industry straight away, rather than living on limited government contracts, because it's not very scalable, government contracts against commercial contracts at the end, right? So although it's hard, it becomes much more harder to build a business and be more successful. It's one way of scaling and making sure companies can survive and thrive, because you literally have to build a business around other businesses. So what do you think about this? Because I see that one of the constant things that a lot of companies keep saying is, I want more government funding or government contracts. But somehow I think that there's more interest in trying to be more commercial, because either you die very quickly, or you live to be very big.
Absolutely. I think it's very important to learn from people in the Silicon Valley, right? The way they have done things, and the way they have progressed is, I mean, it's independent of what government has to say to them. Like, in the sectors they have grown, uh, we need to follow the similar framework, right? We can't. I mean, I've read few blogs like 2 years back or something, where people used to write that satellite imagery, 70% of the satellite imagery is bought by government today, right? Even that number is not, very different from 70% even today. I think, government is definitely out there to help all of us, but it is very important to have that commercial aspect. I really don't, believe in getting government grants for everything. It is very, very important to uh, get into the commercial aspect, because commercial aspects are much more scalable, even in terms of satellite image. When we talk about satellite imagery, we say that government is the biggest customer. Yes, sure, they are, but utilities probably has not figured out all the use cases today, right? Maybe uh, agriculture has not completely unleashed the power of satellite imagery data today, right? Maybe not forestry, or you talk about any segment like finance, insurance, a lot of other people. So if we have right ecosystem to provide right intelligence to the customers, right, we don't have to be independent on government contracts, right? So when it comes to government contracts, and when government is a customer, then government is your investor, right, most of the time. But then you have to get dependent on the grants of the government, programs run by the government. See, space tech is no more the old space, right? We call it new space. So if it is a new space, we have to think very new, and we have to go commercial as much as possible. And I think government is betting huge. They are trying to open up, they are relaxing the policies. They are they're trying to give all the help that a startup would need at an early stage, or at a matured stage, or whatever it is. Uh, Dependency on government thing will not, be a good idea, I would say. And for us, I think we're pretty sure and straightforward that commercial industry is something that, will definitely take space tech somewhere else, and that will only take us to orbits and beyond the orbits. So as GalaxEye, today we are doing Earth observation. Tomorrow we'll do some more things, which is being an eye of Earth in the galaxy is the vision. So all of these things will be propelled by commercial entities more than government, because government has to have that loop. If industry doesn't need anything, then government cannot help. So as a young entrepreneur, I think that is something that I have developed over the last 3 to 4 years. And even in Hyperloop, we think uh, it's not the job of the government to build all the infrastructure or everything, right? It's the job of all of us to put it together. Of course, we need their help. We'll go to them at the right time.
Excellent. And one of the things that I was thinking about when you talked about the use cases or so on. So how much of use cases do you think is underutilized today when it comes to commercial companies when they try to use Earth observation? Because I'm sure that there may be people who don't even understand that they could possibly solve something using Earth observation, right? So what is your sense of how much of commercial businesses or even consumers, the penetration of Earth observation data generally in India?
Uh, I'm not completely sure, about the Indian market, but in terms of the global market, I think it's not even close to 20%, of the use cases that Earth observation can solve, and that is actually because of few problems like affordability, right? People are not able to afford such high cost, high resolution satellite imagery today. Uh, at the same time, availability is also on another problem globally. not many of the use cases have been solved today in the commercial sense. There's a lot of potential because of the recent developments in semiconductors, as well as machine learning and deep learning and AI side of the things, right? And the integration of those aspects to Earth observation will be something that commercial industry will look forward to, right? In fact, big industries, I can't take their names, but I have talked to them. Extremely big multinational companies have been now forcing Earth observation industry in a nice way. They have been trying to talk to their customers to solve few of the problems with utilizing Earth observation. And Earth observation for an end consumer, they don't care about how, from where the data comes, be it satellite or drones or something. What they want is the right analysis and cheaper solution. So it's a job of the analytics companies and industries to do a multimodal analysis, maybe take some census data from the ground and merge it with the Earth observation data, and then finally give them some dashboard which tells them that this is the insight. So I think that integration is yet to be propelled, right? So now analytics companies have their own pain points, end consumers have their own pain points, and then data providers have their own pain points. So GalaxEye wants to disrupt the way how analytics companies or intelligence providers see Earth observation data today. And there, the integration, we want to make it extremely smooth, affordable for them. And once they see this, then the problem of understanding the data will be slightly lesser than what it is today, right? If they get the right data, which is extremely simpler to understand, which they can directly feed into their computer vision, machine vision algorithms, they'll be really happy to do that. And then they take that and finally build dashboards for the customer end consumers. So the bottlenecks is because the defense or government agencies are more interested in surveillance and monitoring. So they want the raw data, they want the accurate data. So they buy the data and then they make sense and then they make decisions. But for the commercial industry, it is much more than that, right? It's about building the right insights and intelligence for them, not just by looking at the data set, but you also have to do the automation of everything, right? For example, you task the data from the satellite, you download the data, you take that data to their ground station, and it directly goes to their account in a way, in a form of a PDF or report or something like that. But it has to be automated in a way. Every Monday I want to see, for example, if I'm an agricultural customer, every Monday I want to see what is the status of my cropland. Or if I'm a construction monitoring construction company, I would like to see what is the progress in my construction, right? But I just want to see what is there. I don't want to understand what is behind. So that pipeline is still a little inefficient by nature. We have to make efforts to make it more efficient so that we reach to the end consumer in a way.
Yeah, very interesting and very exciting the way you narrated all of this. So I'm guessing then you are in the business of providing data, but you will not be providing the analytics to the end user by yourself.
That's true.
Yeah, that's also very exciting because the use cases become very, very broad, and you can be like the the foundation provider who then can whoever specializes in that particular industry can tailor the solution to that particular end user in that case.
Absolutely.
Right. So one of the things that I definitely wanted to ask you in that sense is what more can be done for more such young people, for to find more companies or to form because at the end of the day, if you look at the European Space Agency, they have 20 different business incubators around 20 different countries in European cities, even more, I guess. They've incubated over 1,000 companies in the last 20 years. And for example, we are one of such companies that has been incubated by ESA, right? So I know that your institute, IIT Madras, has a culture of supporting startups, and you also have, because of the brand of IIT, you also get possibly a lot of favorable support from ISRO and others. So are there any like recommendations that you would like to provide based on your experience on, how companies could be supported, even if they come from, smaller cities or even smaller colleges or universities?
Um, I think, at a level one, uh, there are a lot of incubators in tier two and tier three cities in India, right? Like, I think one of them is called Atal Incubation Cell, right? And in fact, I think ISRO is also tying up with Atal Innovation Mission to do a lot of things in tier two and tier three cities. So at a level one, I think they are trying their level best. But at the same time, it's very, very important for everyone to become more aware, right? So I think it's a chicken and egg problem, right? Indian government or any government for that matter would definitely want to accelerate space tech, but at the same time, the entrepreneurs or the people who really want to start up, right? They should understand the nitty gritties. They should be more aware of what exactly needs to be done, and the support will come through, right? Even if you are in tier 2 or tier 3 cities, people will pull you out if you have the right mindset, and if you are really aware of the problem statement, right? Because when we started, I think we faced all the similar problems, right? We had some hypothesis which was completely different, right? And then people came and told us, this is not right, you should do something else, etc., etc. So we had to learn, make amendments at proper time. And whoever is helping you, mentoring you, advising you, right, you have to listen to them, try to come up with the right hypothesis. And then I think to start at, you can go to the level one incubators, whoever it is, be it any kind of support. You start small, show some proof, show some credibility, and then move, because the deltas will be very, very important, right? Even a working code, working software stack will help you to gain more traction amongst investors, incubators, or going to the conference, talking to Narayan, right, and talking to more such people in the ecosystem, joining a lot of clubhouse sessions, right? So becoming more aware in every sense is my advice to any entrepreneur out there. And at the same time, I think the support will follow once you become more aware and understand. For example, I think Banaras Hindu University is having some tie-up with ISRO, right? So if you are around it, and if you're aware that there is something like that, go ahead, talk to them. I don't see any challenge in talking to someone who is running an incubator. They are just lovely people to talk to, and of course there will be challenges, and everything takes its own time, so you have to be patient about it.
Right. And one of the things, of course, is a lot of young people approach me, and I'm sure they approach you as well in this sense about internships. This is something that a lot of young people want to get today in India, internships in space companies. Do you also have, internship programs at your company available?
We do have, like, we do have internships, but uh, like, we have restricted ourselves to very small number as of now. 10 to 15 interns offers, and we have already circulated it. But in future, we definitely want to take few more interns. And the only problem, I think, with the space tech companies like us is, if we the uh, IP is not safe, when we have a lot of people coming in, going out every now and then. So that is why people are not much inclined towards having an intern, right? Someone who can actually work for 6 to 8 months or at least a year is a sweet time, because then they also learn, and then companies also get something in return. So yes, internship. There are a lot of internships that we want to offer. We take them through a small evaluation process, understand the fit with the problem statement or the job description, and then we hire them, right, as an intern. As well as we have few full time people who can guide them on a regular intervals. So that is definitely there, and I encourage to bug all these space tech companies in India. Just go hammer and tongs, call everyone, email everyone, get the internship if you're really passionate about it.
Right. So, final question. I know that I've taken almost an hour now from you, and it's been very insightful. Thank you so much. Uh, so, what do you think is something that you will achieve in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years? Where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years? And, overall, just aside from you as well, what is your assessment of how many new companies that we will see in the next 3 to 5 years?
We will be definitely, putting up a constellation in 5 years from now. And, we would like to give the Earth observation community what they want. And, we would like to establish the culture of commercial sense of Earth observation and the real commercial sense of the Earth observation imagery. So that is our mission, right? And we do have a lot of value propositions to solve that. And of course, we do want to serve everyone, be it defense or commercial, but we definitely want to encourage commercial entities to look into Earth observation market, and that is where most of the focus will be in next 5 years. uh, I think in the ecosystem, a lot of people will come and try and solve a lot of problems. For example, I think a uh, fellow startup called Digantra, right? They are doing a great job uh, understanding what is the space debris, and trying to give insights when you are there in the orbit, right, about the mission and other things. I think similar innovative and problem solving solutions are required. And I think the companies will fall in line, they will fall in place, and they will find their own fit. And every part of the value chain will be filled with companies in India, because there's a lot of interest in people. But my only advice to anyone is, it's very important to have right talent and right team, because you may promise a lot, but you may not be able to deliver if you don't have right people in the team. So this is something that everyone should be aware, and keep it in their minds. So don't just do startup for the sake of doing startup. If you really want to solve something, then do it. All of these things, like raising funding, everything is a great learning experience. But at the end of the day, it's all about serving the customer that is there, even though it is space tech, right? So few people think space technology is all about interstellar and other things, right? But it's not exactly that. It is also serving people and trying to solve problems for people on Earth, right? And of course, there are much more things, like which we want to do in future, like sustainable cities on Mars and other things. But it will take its own sweet time. But we have to develop an infrastructure so that we reach Mars tomorrow. So I think talent team is very important. But I do see a lot of companies coming up, taking one problem of the value chain and solving it, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Suyash, for being on the show. I think it's been very insightful. I wish I had the maturity at your age when I was, at your age as well. So I think, yeah, I see a lot of very high quality entrepreneurs coming out of India at very young ages, right? So I think it's always very exciting in that sense. I wish you and your team the very best of luck as you build up and scale up. And anywhere we could help, we're always there to pitch in and help. Please feel free to reach out to any of us in the NewSpace India community, and good luck with everything. Thank you again for being a part of the show.
Absolutely, Narayan. It was lovely chatting with you. Thank you.